Welcome to the Ultrahuman experience. This session is free for you for the complete experience. Please download the Ultrahuman app.
Good evening. Welcome to Bedtime Stories. My name is Sarah Kennedy. Tonight, we journey with an astrophotographer who is on her way to find a marvel. One that her grandmother shared with her when she was a little girl. It's almost like a family heirloom to her, and tonight, she wants to share it with us. Imagine yourself standing in the midst of the darkening wood, quietly observing everything around you. The titters of insects, the trills of birds, the rustling branches and leaves, which seem to shimmer and dance in the gentle breeze. Your every sense is heightened. You can feel the cool of the breeze against the skin on your arm. You can smell the faint sweetness of the forest in the air. It's so familiar and inviting. Take a deep breath and allow this sweet air to replenish and rejuvenate you. Nothing else matters now. It's just you with the forest, whole and peaceful. As the final moments of the evening fade away, the setting sun lights up the horizon with brilliant, swirling shades of apricot, tangerine, and amethyst. You are eager for the darkness of the night, and your excitement grows as the sun sinks away. There's just enough light left for you to see where you're going, and you begin to walk along a weaving dirt path through the Warrumbungle National Park, the only dark sky park in the entire Southern Hemisphere. Even before you embarked on your career as an astrophotographer, you wanted to visit this incredible place, designed specifically to allow the best possible view of the universe, a view undisturbed by the light pollution of the city. And after counting down the days, the time has finally arrived for you to gaze up at the night sky in all its sparkling glory. You are armed with the tools of your trade, your backpack of supplies, your camera slung around your neck, the telescope barrel under one arm, and the tripod under the other. You're enjoying the sound of your boots crunching along the rocky dirt as you walk deeper into the bush, further and further away from the busy world. It feels good to leave the day behind you and breathe in the crisp country air. filled with the cleansing smell of the leaves of the eucalyptus trees. Fresh and dewy after the day's rain. You're making your way through the national park towards the historic Baylor Hut, which you've booked for the night since you want to make the most of the night hours and not have to rush back home. It is one of the most remote camping spots in the area. A simple hut made of green metal so that it blends into the surrounding bushland. There is a small camping ground in front of the hut where you plan to spend most of the night. You only hired the hut as a precaution. What you really long for is a full night under the magnificent sky. You've wanted to come here for as long as you can remember, and to see everything the universe has to offer. Above all, you've craved the perfect view of your favorite cluster of stars, the jewel box. And you've finally made it happen. Despite the cool evening air, the brisk walk keeps you warm. And you think back to when you first fell in love with the night sky. You were just a little girl, spending time with your beloved grandmother during your school holidays. All day, you'd looked forward to the surprise your grandmother said she had for you. And when dusk finally gave way to night, she led you out into the back garden. On the grass, a thick crocheted rug your grandmother had knitted in the softest yarn lay spread out, with plush cushions and a single candle by the side, whose flame flickered brightly. You were thrilled, since you guessed that this meant you would get to stay up way past your bedtime. You hurried over to the rug and settled into place. Your grandmother told you to lie back against the cushions, and she lay down beside you, then pulled the thick blanket over both of you to keep you warm against the chilly night air. As you got comfortable, she began telling you about her love of stars, and about how stars appear clustered together to create constellations. You remember staring up at the sky, unable to see what she meant, until your grandmother raised her hand in the air and with her finger pointed towards the stars. It made you so happy. Cuddling up beside her as she pointed out two of the brightest stars in the sky, Alpha and Beta Centauri. She told you that they were called the sister stars, and as she traced a path between them, she led your gaze towards the Crux constellation. You're amazed at how the sister stars seem to point straight towards the crux. And you, too, traced the path with your finger, realizing that the constellation formed the shape of a kite. Your grandmother told you that the crux was also known as the Southern Cross, and that it was only visible in the Southern Hemisphere. Your grandmother lowered her voice and whispered in your ear as though she was telling you a magical secret. She spoke of the treasure hidden in the crux constellation. As you hung onto her every word, your grandmother told you about the majestic cluster of stars called the Jewel Box. She pointed downwards, past the western star of the Southern Cross, where you could just about make out the faint glittering of the star cluster. Your grandmother explained that the stars within the jewel box were made up of all the colours of the rainbow. So brilliant, she said, that they would put even the most precious jewels to shame. You tried to see them, but were a bit disappointed that they weren't as bright as the other stars, and really just looked like a sparkling blur. But then your grandmother reached over and handed you a pair of binoculars. Excited, you aimed them towards the cluster and peered through them. A happy warmth spread through you as the jewel box came into view. You could now see clearly how the stars appeared to sparkle as though they were jewels in some royal crown. You would have loved to see them closer, but even this much was riveting. It felt like your grandmother was passing on a family heirloom, something for you to hold dear to your heart and share with your own children one day. You didn't want to put the binoculars down and told your grandmother that when you grew up, you would buy a huge telescope so that both of you could view the jewel box in its full glory. Reaching the Bela hut, you smile at the memory as you shrug off your backpack and set up your telescope. While you won't be able to share the experience with your grandmother in person, you feel as though she is right there with you. It is as if your shared love of the jewel box closes the gap between you, and that in some way you are, in fact, sharing the experience. The last of the light slips down below the eucalyptus trees and you gaze up, in awe of the miraculous Milky Way as it snakes up over the sky. You feel humbled when you think of how the river of stars overhead make up part of the arm of a spiral galaxy. And you think of a time when everyone on the earth had this dazzling view of the night sky, without any interference from the modern world. The night sky is breathtaking, far beyond anything you expected. There are more stars in the sky than you've ever seen. And you take a moment to just appreciate the majestic beauty of the universe above you. Then, just like you did when you were a little girl laying with your grandmother, you raise your hand and point your finger towards the sister stars, Alpha and Beta Centauri, and trace a line to the Southern Cross. Even though you can find the Crux constellation just by scanning the sky with your naked eyes, it makes you feel close to your grandmother to still do it this way. It feels special to you. You think back to the night you first saw the jewel box. The smell of your grandmother's cooking still wafted through the house long after dinner. Garlic and rosemary, lemon and thyme. She'd gone through so much effort to make the night special, cooking you your favourite meal of homemade ravioli. Better yet, your favourite dessert, Grandma's famous apple pie. You could still taste the sweet, soft, cinnamon-flavoured apples and the golden pastry, crisp and soft at the same time. It was one of the many things you loved about visiting her. The house always smelled like cooking. Your grandmother had a wonderful garden full of herbs and vegetables and fruit trees. Before cooking or baking anything, she would take you outside, holding your hand in one hand while cradling a wicker basket with the other. She would show you which vegetables were ready to pick and how to gather herbs without damaging the plants. For you, there was something special about selecting ingredients with your own hands. Thinking back, you realize that there was so much that your grandmother taught you over the years. You lean over the telescope and position it so that it's directed towards the Crux constellation. Then you peer through the eyepiece. You expertly twist and turn the knobs as you focus in on the coordinates for the jewel box. And as you do, you remember how animated your grandmother was as she first told you about it. Gazing up at the beautiful stars, you feel completely in awe as you watch them flicker and sparkle, as though they were conducting their own galactic ballet. Nothing makes you feel as happy and fills you with as much wonder and delight as stargazing. You attach your camera to the telescope and line up a series of photographs, expertly capturing their magic and the intensity of their colours. Removing the camera, you lift it up, scroll through the images, and pause over one. Thrilled, you see that it looks as though you've caught one of the stars mid-flicker. It's almost white in the centre and expands out into a majestic blue at the peripheries. Smiling to yourself, it occurs to you that the photograph would make a wonderful gift for your grandmother. A little piece of the jewel box that she can hang on her wall. Peering through the telescope, you adjust the knobs and dials again and home in on 3 particular stars of the cluster. One that is sparkling azure blue, another that is golden amber, and another glistening teal. You smile. It reminds you of the time you made your grandmother a jewellery box. You'd wanted it to look just like the stars she loved so much. And you had spent hours painstakingly gluing plastic gemstones to the lid of the box, making sure you got it right. Proudly, you'd gifted it to your grandmother, and she'd loved it so much that you couldn't stop smiling for the rest of the day. In fact, the jewellery box still sits on her dressing table, holding her most prized possessions, including a small photograph of the 2 of you together, and a friendship bracelet you made in primary school. The box was made of simple plywood, quite thin and light, which had made it easier for your little hands to decorate it. You'd painted it with strokes of midnight blue, so thick that even now when you run your fingers over sections, you can feel the bristle grooves in the paint. The gemstones were a mixture of shapes and sizes, perfect, you felt, to reflect the differences in the stars. Some were pointed and triangular. Some were rounded ovals. Others were ellipses with pointed ends. And still others were intricate octagons. You had even found a couple of heart-shaped ones to add to the mix. You remember how particular you were when it came to choosing colours, since you wanted to capture the colours of the real jewel box. Finally, you'd found some gems of cobalt and azure blue, mixed with others of amber and honey orange. It was the most beautiful thing you'd ever made. And you remember how proud you felt as you gave it to your grandmother. You decide to take a break. You open your backpack and pull out the crocheted rug from your childhood. It's a little thin in places, but you couldn't imagine using anything else. You spread it out carefully, then lie down and tuck the backpack under your head. Without the disturbance from light pollution, it's much easier to see the jewel box with the naked eye, and it warms your heart to watch the stars flicker. You feel so deeply connected to your grandmother that you can almost sense her sitting right there beside you. Just like in the evenings of your childhood that you spent stargazing in her garden. A slight evening breeze flows over you, causing your hair to sweep slightly over your face. It takes you back to that special night with your grandmother. As you lay there together, staring up at the stars, she trailed her fingernails through your hair in slow, rhythmic strokes. The memory itself is so deeply relaxing that you close your eyes, imagining that the breeze feels like your grandmother's fingers. You feel as though you can hear her gently humming an old tune from her youth, just as she did when you were a little girl. Your heart swells at the memory, and you feel enveloped in love and happiness. It is as if time has come to a stop, and there's nothing in the world but the woods around you and the stars above. You take a deep breath and feel your body relaxing into the ground as you remember your grandmother, wondering if she's looking up at the jewel box, just like you are. The thought makes you happy, and you feel grateful to her for instilling in you her love of the stars. A sense of peace settles over you, as comforting as your grandmother's blankets. You inhale deeply, enjoying the scent of the eucalyptus in the clear night air. You can hear the leaves rustle high up in the branches of the majestic trees, which are older than you, and older even than your grandmother. You imagine that they're also reveling in the starlight as it travels millions of light years down to you. As you exhale, you imagine the day's stresses floating out of you, drawn up towards the stars. It comforts you as though the cluster above you in the jewel box is one big guiding star looking out for you. There is something magical in the knowledge that it doesn't matter whether it is tonight, 10 years from now, or even 20. The jewel box will be up there, twinkling its love and light from the night sky. The thought reminds you again of your grandmother and the way she has always guided you. You feel safe and protected as your eyes grow heavy. You try to keep them open, but you can't remember the last time you felt so relaxed. Letting them close, your breathing deepens and slows down. As images of time spent stargazing with your grandmother flit across your mind's eye, and then slip back into your memories. Sleep gently embraces you. Even with your eyes closed, you feel as though you can still see the flickering of the jewel box above you, always watching and guiding you. You drift off into sleep with stars dancing in your dreams. Good night and sleep well.